It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. You can find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting, either at my website, emailrevealer.com. You just email me directly at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. Our guest today, we're going to be talking about TWA 800. Okay, remember this flight? It was in New York City, and it got shot down by, it crashed. There's conflicting stories. Most people agree at this point that it was taken down by a missile. We just don't know who. Our guest today is Arran Sheets. Now, you can find him on Facebook and YouTube. On YouTube, the name is, let me see if I pull this up real fast. It is Rob Shef, ROBSHEF. And he just started a YouTube channel talking about the TWA 800 controversy. But you can also find him on Facebook under the name Arran Sheets, SHEETS. And the one, there's a lot of them out there, but the one he is, there's like a flight deck with like a Navy, I guess that's an aircraft carrier, something like that. Mr. Arran Sheets, thank you. I know you really immersed yourself into this story and this investigation.
I began with seeing Ray Lair's lawsuit. Ray Lair is a former NTSB investigator. He lives in Malibu, California, and he filed suit against the NTSB for certain crash records about the crash of Flight 800. So pretty much, I'm a single man. Like I said, I live here in Florida, retired now, and that's my page right there on this little intro for you. So,
well, then let me ask you this. Now, so you were living in Florida when this crash took place in New York?
Yes, this was back in 1996, July 17th. I was actually working at a mom-and-pop pizza place. I was a front-end chef. And when this news came on, I perked up my ears because a lot of things the news was saying about this was not making too much sense. Now, the first point about this crash was that the government, exclusively the NTSB, said that the 747 took off from JFK Airport. 12 minutes into the flight, when it was heading across, going to Paris, the plane just suddenly exploded. Okay? People up and down Long Island saw this explosion and the debris falling down, and the first thought was maybe this was a bomb. Okay? So the investigation began. But on that evening, people that were on the beach in boats, flying in their private airplanes, said they saw what appeared to be like flare-like, streak-like, rocket-like objects going across the sky before they saw this big fuel-air fireball. Well, the NTSB eventually, along with the CIA, which is not known for air crash investigations, got involved. And they both wanted to dismiss the people's explanations for these rocket-like and missile-like objects. They said you didn't see no missile out there. They said that what you saw was the aircraft in crippled flight ascending. Well, this is what perked up Ray Lair's interest in this. As I said, Ray Lair was a former Navy pilot, United pilot. He was the ALPA representative for the Airline Pilots Association and worked on 8 NTSB investigations himself. So when this was getting up in the mix, all of a sudden everything was abuzz with conspiracy theories, as I like to call them. For everybody that said a missile was seen or missiles were seen, the government said, no, you're nuts. So to cover this visualization, as you would call it, of this rising streak, the CIA made a video, and what they showed was, and again, it's just a tragedy what happened up there, when allegedly the fuel tank, center wing fuel tank, which is a fuel tank which is between the wings on the 747, okay, they said that blew up, some mechanical failure. Then they show in their video the whole front end of the aircraft. Now, mind you, from the nose tip back to where the wings are, if you visualize a 747, it is about 75 feet. That's 40 tons of aircraft. Okay? The CIA said that this aircraft then pitched up and continued to climb several thousand feet. Okay? Regulators said nonsense. And all the aeronautical community said nonsense. That can't happen. So this is what got the ball rolling on this case, Ed.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there a news video of this, or a witness took a video as well that disappeared?
Now, this I have no bona fides for. My purpose is to present paperwork and bona fide public records that I am aware with. There have been quite a few stories, Ed, that I have not found any information for. That is a very good question, Ed, because many stories out there have been that people were videotaping or took pictures and that the FBI confiscated this. That would only be for any of those particular witnesses themselves who came forward. But now for the information for the listeners out there, the FBI did interview quite a few number of people taking down their statements. Some of these people have come forward, and they worked with Raylair and filed their affidavits for the court and explaining what they saw. The NTSB and the FBI also put that in the NTSB report, but they did everything that they could to have these witnesses look like they're not knowing what they're talking about, that they mistook this crippled flight for a missile. And the whole crux to that case was the mechanics of this. An aircraft that blows in half is going to drop like a rock. It's not going to keep on flying. So again, just to recap on that, well, when the explosion occurred that night, witnesses saw the aircraft go down, but they did say that they saw streak-like objects heading toward the aircraft beforehand, and people were adamant they saw a rocket. Now, the FBI and the CIA, and they said, well, there's no terrorism. So they did everything they could to alleviate the witness statements. And the media, they accepted the videos. Anybody can go online and they can look up, at YouTube especially, Flight 800 Zoom climb video or something to that effect, and it will show that for you.
Okay, a couple more quick questions.
Sure.
Also, some other researchers were arrested for picking up debris on the beach.
On that story, I believe what we're thinking about here, Ed, is Mr. James Sanders. He was a retired Seal Beach police officer who later became a journalist. Now, James Sanders, he wrote his first book and did a video with Jack Cashill. Jack Cashill was known for his WorldNet Daily articles. Right. Jack Cashill wrote extensively articles on TWA 800 and put in a lot of good information, as a fact, toward the case. Now, James Sanders' wife, I believe it's Elizabeth, pardon me if I didn't get her name right, I believe it was Elizabeth. She was a stewardess herself, or a flight attendant in this case. Now, Captain Terrell Stacy was a TWA 747 pilot. He was assigned to the NTSB to work in the hangar where the wreckage was. Okay? Terrell Stacy knew things were not going right with the investigation. So when he saw this pattern of this red residue going across the center of the aircraft, he scraped off a little bit. And as he got informed with somebody, they said, well, send this up to James Sanders, which he did. James Sanders took this red residue and he had it sampled. So they actually ended up arresting James Sanders and his wife Elizabeth for conspiracy to steal aircraft parts. Right. And all he was trying to do was get this red residue tested to find out what it was. So yes, there were some arrests, as well as some of the people on the interiors group that were working on the wreckage, which were intimidated by the FBI on this. So yeah, you're right, Ed. There were some arrests there, and people can look that up.
Yeah, but it's such a small world. A friend of mine in Vegas just happened to be friends with them, and she says,
wow,
it's such a small world. It really is, Now, but the thing again with the missile. Now, I guess there's records or witnesses that there was a Navy or a not Coast Guard, a National Guard, a Navy boat there, something like that. What do we know about that?
Okay, on that night, this is where I was getting very intrigued. I've been working on this myself since 2000, taking all the experiences I have with aviation and other investigative jobs that I've had in the military. We know that the only government ship that was out there, and this is a bona fide, this is a public record, was the Coast Guard cutter Adak. Okay, the Coast Guard cutter Adak was out there on fishery patrols. All right. The rumors were that the Navy was out there, but after 25 years, nobody has been able to come forward, and especially in this latest new wrongful death lawsuit, to provide evidence that the Navy was out there. They have pulled up radar graphs that were presented by independent investigators that shows the greater Long Island area and all these primary radar tracks. And the rumor started, we'll see these 30 tracks out here. These are 30 naval vessels. But Ed, for all of the commercial flights that were transiting that area, for all the private planes that were out there the night, for all of the pleasure boaters that were out there that night, at the trawlers and then the Adak themselves, not one person flying over in that whole greater Long Island area ever said we saw a flotilla of naval vessels. That story is just not true. They had to find, this is some of the independent investigators who I've tried to talk to and explain things or try to get a conversation going, wanted to pin this on the Navy. But I said it was a missile, but my research is saying that the Navy was not out there. I don't find any evidence that the Navy was out there.
Okay, that's interesting. Now would a Coast Guard cutter, you've been in the Navy, okay, you're Bozeman, would a Coast Guard cutter have the capability to fire a missile? No.
No.
Yeah.
No, they're not. They might have small. I mean, would be only guessing here. Only guessing. Maybe they have some small intercepted missiles for something they have to do regarding drug aircraft, but that's a whole different story. Okay, but the Adak was out there that night, and when the aircraft went down, they saw the aircraft go down to their north. The Adak, now, had there been any Navy ships out there, the Adak would have known this. See, part of this story, Ed, is that the warning area, okay, that's an area which is 12 miles and farther off the coast. There's an area out there that's just off the coast, and they have different numbers for them. They say where ships can go in and operate and do special things, all right, like the military, have exercises and all this. Now, had warning area 105, which is about 15, 16 miles out, or probably a little bit more is where 105 is, off the coast of Long Island, if you're just looking straight out from the ocean there. That area was not activated. I do have copies of the FAA logs showing that whole larger area, that the areas were available, but nobody checked in, okay? So that ship, that area out there was not active. Now, had that area been active for a live fire exercise, as the rumors have been spread, the Adak would have had to know this. They were on fishery patrol. They were not out there watching this Navy in case there was an accident or something. Because if you have this warning area open, you have to make sure that certain boats and aircraft and ships can't go in that area. But the map and the radar shows that you have all kinds of regular boats and ships and stuff out there on that.
So now you can say conclusively that you yourself, Arran Sheets, have looked at this radar data, and you can tell me that there was no Navy ships out there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And this is what the documentation that I have, which is down my list here for y'all. They were looking at certain radar graphs and tracks. But here's the problem with that. As I started to mention to you, Ed, when that plane went down, there was a Navy P-3 that had passed the area. Now, this Navy P-3 was also added into the theory that it was out there working on this missile exercise. That is so far from the truth, Ed. I have those public records, and anybody can look them up. I will post the links for them on my regular YouTube page when I can.
Gotcha. But let me ask you a question. Is it possible that there could be a cover-up and that they phonied this data?
Absolutely. I don't like saying cover-up. I really don't. But I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
This is the whole point of Ray Lair's lawsuit, was to show that there was Navy fraud. Now, most of your viewers don't know. They probably never heard of Ray Lair, and they've never heard of this lawsuit. Now, I tried contacting CBS 47 News here in Jacksonville. I sent them letters. I sent them court documents. I sent Channel 12 News here in Jacksonville documents and letters. Now, this is court documents. This is where the judge said that he found for Ray Lair. The judge said that he found the government for gross negligence. Gross negligence is on the top of the list. That's almost criminal. Ray Lair and his experts were able to show the court, and a lot of the charges that Ray Lair made, the NTSB really couldn't respond to. So the judge said, on this account, because the government can't respond, we find for Ray Lair. So he had a very successful lawsuit, and nobody knows about this because the mainstream media is not going to carry this. Otherwise, they're going to have egg on their face because they've been out there saying, well, anybody that says they saw a missile is a conspiracy kook, and why would the NTSB lie? So for them to go back and have to admit this, they're working tooth and nail to keep this, out of the news.
Then, Arran Sheets, what was Ray Lair's theory of the case? How does he think that this plane went down?
Well, looking at it at first, he knew it was a missile. Okay, we knew it was a missile. You look at the damage. There is missile damage all over this wreckage, Ed. But yet the government looks and goes, what damage? They even had the FBI come out there and under penalty of perjury, when they stand there and say, I'm going to tell you the truth, stood there and lied and said, we don't find any evidence of missile damage. But that's just not true. The NTSB's investigator dockets have in there high energy penetrations, okay, all over that fuselage. There's missile blast damage all over that aircraft. And the NTSB and the FBI's hired technicians try to pass it off as something else. But it's documented. How can you have a center tank over pressure? Now, this is the point I need to add in there for the benefit of the listeners about, well, why did the center tank explode? Okay, the 747 was flying to Paris. It came in from Athens. It had a full center wing tank. Now, again, the center wing tank is in the fuselage area between the wings, literally. And they didn't have to refuel it to head back to Paris because they were getting the tailwind. They weren't flying against the wind. Now, the tank had literally about 50 gallons of jet fuel. That works out to about less than 1/10 of 1% of the total volume of fuel that tank will take. The government's theory was that somehow this electrical spark, a short circuit, something happened that ignited these explosive fuel vapors, and it blew this plane apart. Well, as an aviation bosun's mate myself in the Navy, aircraft handler, I work with jet fuel. Fireman, I worked firefighting on this. jet fuel is about as dangerous as a jar of peanut butter, okay? Aviation kerosene is extremely stable. It has a high flash point. It has a very low volatility. It's very hard to put a match to it or flame anything and get it to even catch fire. It's got to heat up, and there's no way that you can get that fuel that hot. Okay, well, don't close the book there. The NTSB had to come up and say, well, you see, they got this air pack system under the center tank, the air conditioning system, and that just heated this fuel tank up, and it just got it so hot. And again, people are saying nonsense. You see how complex this can get, Ed?
Yeah. When you're saying that an air conditioner made it hot, you run into problems right out of the gate. Oh, boy.
But I could talk an hour on that.
Yeah.
But I did want to go back to that one point about what happened as soon as the explosion had occurred. I'll just interject right here. The explosion occurred when it was a high-speed, hypersonic missile that was transiting the airspace. This was captured on FAA radar. Now, most people might not know this, that Dave Thomas with the FAA, he actually had to report this incident because it was so suspect and suspicious. It went to the White House Situation Room that night. People don't know this, okay? To have this rogue target at supersonic speed, and then when you have witnesses on the beach say they heard these loud boom, 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 booms, that's sonic booms. This is from this object going across the sky. That's what was the case for these sonic booms. So when they heard that, they knew that it was an initial missile. So Dave Thomas, he wrote an affidavit for Ray Lair for his lawsuit. And what happened was Bernard Loeb from the NTSB, he was one of the upper managers, he wrote a letter to Dave Thomas. And he says, I'll just shorten it here. He said, hey, Dave, how about if you just ignore this radar data? You know, we don't want to have people speculating about a missile or anything. And Dave Thomas said, well, in a letter back, and I have these letters, and these, so probably I can get them posted on my webpage too. He said, I'm sorry, Mr. Loeb, but I can't comply with your request. He said, though I understand that you want to allay your concerns about a missile, he said, for me to do anything different would be irresponsible. He said, we merely pointed what we saw being very suspicious, that we had this high-speed rogue target missile. You have witnesses saying we saw something shooting across the sky real fast like a flare, and then we see this aircraft explode. He said, I had to report that. And the NTSB really couldn't respond to that too much in their court case. Again, this is why the judge found for NTSB fraud, and most people don't know about that.
You were telling me off the air before we started that there was a whistleblower that you have you question.
Right. Okay. This came up just about 6 months ago or so. I can say the man's name because he's come forward. All right. His name is William H. Teal III. Okay. He states that he was an operations specialist on board the USS Carr. All right. He came forward and he said, okay, I was out there. I'm telling you what happened. The ship I was with shot down Flight 800. Now, at first, Mr. Teal did not know the name of the other ship. Okay, now on YouTube, I went in there and I was playing good cop, bad cop, in other words. I was talking to him and trying to get some information. We had a conversation going, and I had asked him, I said, well, what about this other ship and all this? Well, he finally came back and he said, he wrote to me and he used my handle name, which is Rob Shef. He said, Rob, Jack Cashill already discussed this in one of his articles, that it was the USS Leyte Gulf, CG-55. He said, and he quote in there, that shot down Flight 800. And then he went on and said, then we ran to Bermuda. Okay? Now, there's quite a few problems with Teal's story. First of all, he claims at first he didn't know the name of the ship. So when I asked him about it, he came up and stated, "Oh, well, it was the Lady Gulf that was out there with us." Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and just speed this up a little bit. I'm just going to go ahead and read what I wrote in one of my articles here, so I can just get it verbatim. Teal claims that the target fit the profile. Okay. Now when Teal was out there, they were looking for a tow target, which it gets towed from an aircraft on a 1,000-foot cable. Okay? Now, he said he talked with the other ship. They said that they confirmed that they locked on and they reconfirmed this target. Okay, now this is in W105, which is 25 miles away. TWA 800 was 8 miles off the coast of Long Island. Teal went on to say that, TWA fit the profile. Okay? He said that the target was a low, slow flyer heading towards them. Teal said that TWA fit that profile. Well, this would be absolutely impossible for multiple reasons. The target would have to be within 105. TWA was not. The target would have to be, as Teal said, coming right at them. TWA was not coming right at them. Teal said that the target was a low, slow flyer. TWA was not. TWA was 25 plus nautical miles away, which put her at about 8 nautical miles off the coast of Long Island. As well, TWA was climbing to 15,000 feet, heading east by east-northeast at 448 miles per hour. None of this fits for the drill for a low, slow flyer heading towards them. So this idea that, he said he heard over the radio, salvo, 2 missiles away. But then, for some reason, these 2 missiles that are supposed to be heading within the 105 border, somehow, and this is according to this new latest wrongful death lawsuit, this is a whole other big area here. These 2 missiles were supposed to have lost their lock on this tow target at about 6,000 feet. They then turned north, weaved their way through all of this other traffic, okay, and then while this is happening, Teal nor the other ship, the Lady Gulf, even knew where these missiles were. And Teal said that in his own words. He said, because we did not know several minutes later until we were getting what they call battle damage assessment. And he said, somebody came up and said, we hit an Airbus. And then Teal says, well, what's an Airbus? And the other person said, well, that's a commercial plane. Okay, now, Teal may have some things technically correct, but his scenario, it just could not happen. Okay.
Real quick, Arran Sheets, you mentioned that in one of your articles. Where can people find your articles?
Again, on my YouTube page. When they go to YouTube and they find me, again, I'm going to try to find the number. There's a certain number attached to your specific Arran Sheets. That when they click on your icon to pick up your wall.
Okay, but when you go to YouTube, you're talking about YouTube now, right? Where you put the video up.
On my Facebook. On my Facebook,
gotcha.
Mr. Ed. Yeah. On my Facebook, yes. So you go in there and you type in Arran Sheets, and
then it's .129. Yeah, Arran Sheets .129. You should be able to find it.
Okay, that's it. Okay, great. Yeah, that was in the back of my mind. Thanks for reminding me.
I'm on top of all this. So then what do you make of this whistleblower? Misinformed?
Well, again, I cannot say what Teal's motives are. But the main crux of this is we could only have this latest wrongful death lawsuit because of what Teal has said. Now, let me expand on this. After the aircraft first went down back in 1997, the families believed the NTSB's mechanical failure. They said, oh, that's nonsense. The Navy wouldn't shoot down a flight and run. And I said the same thing. So they were not accepting this missile shoot down. So they sued TWA and Boeing Aircraft, and they got money. People can look this up. Go to Google and type in TWA wrongful death lawsuits, and you're going to get all of the attorneys and the money. See? So what's strange to me is how can they then turn around and say, change their mind all of a sudden and say, well, we don't believe the NTSB anymore. Well, my question is, where does that now leave the NTSB? Okay? They say, we don't believe the center fuel tank exploded. We believe a missile brought this plane down. Well, you know, Ed, they can only state that based on Mr. Teal's statements that 2 missiles were fired. Now, this latest lawsuit is up in Massachusetts, I believe. It's Thomas Stalcup. He's at flight800.org or something like that. He's been working on this for a long time. And the suit states that Stalcup has all of this information that proves the Navy did it. Well, I would sure like to see this information. And then the families are filing for suit. So they want to get a wrongful death lawsuit because they're filing against Raytheon Corporation. They're filing against Lockheed Martin. They're filing against the Missile Defense Agency and the U.S. Navy for wrongful death. Their claim is that this Aegis system somehow accidentally mistook the regular target and went off and hit the wrong target. Okay? And so this is why they're filing, and they want to get money again. And I thought, in my opinion, isn't that double dipping?
A couple of questions for you. The Ray Lair lawsuit, the one that was successful, how many plaintiffs was he representing in that case? Do we know?
Ray Lair, when he filed suit, I will also have to post a link for that too. But there are, at least 30 different affidavits. These are different people that went to bat for him, other aviation professionals in different disciplines.
Right. I'm not asking about witnesses. I'm asking about how many plaintiffs was he representing? How many clients did he have? One family?
Well, there were a few families, just a few that provided affidavits for him.
Gotcha.
But Ray Lair was trying to point out that he wanted to find out what data did you use to show that this aircraft, after it blew in half, continued to fly and climb?
Oh, so wait, so Ray Lair wasn't seeking monetary damages. He didn't have a client in that capacity. He was just trying to expose and recover information.
Right. This was a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit, exactly.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, I'm sorry.
Right, and I participated with him as well as a lot of other people that were sending. I sent him several technical essays that he was able to use, and along with other people's information, and he filed it for information and data. Well, when push came to shove, Ray Lair, since he did receive the bulk of the documents that he requested, he essentially prevailed. The judge said, you have to release this document, you have to release that document, because the NTSB was not forthcoming. They were not out there to help Ray Lair get documents. They were doing everything they could, Ed, by using every possible statute from the FOIA to keep him from getting information. He was in court for about 4 years, back and forth. His attorney, John Clark, worked. John Clark put in for an en banc hearing, a writ of certiorari, and this went to the appeals courts. Now, the way didn't get everything he wanted, and this was about, certain witnesses and the FBI saying, well, there's certain witness protections and stuff like this, but the bulk proving that the NTSB's theory that this was a center tank explosion, that's been already covered, okay? So we do know it was a missile. We do know that it was not a Navy missile, at least from my side of the story here. And now we need to find out whose missile it was. But I believe I had told you what I had come across in another court document regarding what the National Security Agency had stated.
Oh, no, I don't think you told me that. Where do you think the missile came from?
Okay, I'm still working on it.
Okay.
But once you get rid of everything, once I've already shown, because now about the Navy not being out there, I wanted to interject that. Try to remind me what you were asking me here, but I have congressional documents. The Secretary of Defense told Congress, they said the Congress said we want to get some documents here. We want to know what Navy ships were out there, where they were at 8:30 p.m. on July 17th, 1996. Okay, so by way of the Secretary of Defense, those requests were put in. It was Judith A. Miller. She was the General Counsel for the Department of Defense, and then Jack D. Punches. He was the Information Officer for the Navy. They complied with the request for Congress, and they gathered up a name of ships. They came up with approximately 12 ships that were out there, but all these ships were 300 miles to the south. None of these ships were on a missile exercise. Okay, they were just out there on just regular routine. They pull out and they just go out and they just do workups. Okay?
Yeah, but wait a second, Mr. Sheets. Doesn't the Navy have missiles that can travel 300 miles?
Well, here I'll be getting the speculation. But what we have is a scenario taking place close to Long Island. We don't have something that appeared to be coming from 300 miles way down south. Okay, see, that's where we get into another interview on this.
Yeah.
But the problem with this though is we have to get back to the principle. Now, I sat down and I wrote several letters, 2 letters, well over 50 pages of documents and statements and everything, and I sent to the current General Counsel, Catherine D. Cross. I sent to her, I said, ma'am, I said, here are your own records from way back after TWA went down. Here is your General Counsel. She's no longer there, but in the Navy, they provided a list of ships. Okay, the USS Carr and the USS Lady Gulf are not on that list. I said, but you have a whistleblower out there saying that the Navy did it. Okay, I can't say that's Mr. Teal's testimony because he's only made statements. He's not been under oath yet. And that would make a difference between a statement and a testimony.
Right.
Okay, so given that that ship's not out there, I said you need to apprise through an amicus brief. You need to apprise the judge of this information here. I said, I'm coming to bat for the Navy. I said, and most people say, well, you're just defending the Navy because you were in the Navy. And I said, no, I'm looking at the facts, the plain facts.
Do we know, if you've concluded that the Lady Gulf and this other ship were not there by Long Island, do we know where they were?
Apparently, they were not even operational that night. That's the whole point.
Yeah, that's suspicious. Wait a second. That, you know what I mean? Like, if they say, oh, yeah, it was at this port over here, then I would buy that, okay? But if they say they're not operational, right, then where were they? Like in a dock or something, being repaired?
Well, no. The car was stationed in Norfolk, and the Lady Gulf was down here in Mayport. Okay, I'm about 20 miles from Mayport. I live here in Jacksonville, and all that. So the ships just weren't operational that night. Not every Navy ship went out.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. So not that they were taken off active. They just weren't in use. They weren't in use that night.
No. They just weren't operational that night.
Okay.
Okay, but according to Teal, they were. But I was hitting back on that P3 thing. After the P3 had flown past and they heard radio chatter that a 747 went down, the commander, Lieutenant Ott, was from VP 26 of Tridents. They were up there in Brunswick, Maine, but now they're stationed 5 miles away from me here in Jacksonville, Florida. So he turned his plane around, and they went right back down to the crash area. And he got on the radio, and he said, ma'am, is there anything we can do? Because they had some rescue equipment. They said they could have tossed out life rafts and this, that, and the other. Well, since the Coast Guard, the ADAC was the first one to start, you had other Coast Guards coming out from Mauritius Inlet. You didn't want to have every ship in the world. You're going to have too much confusion.
Yeah.
So, of course, the government and the police want to keep, they don't want looky-loos and everybody else out there. They want to keep people away. So when the P3 turned around, the P3 never got on the radio, and they would have. If that 105 would have been active, the P3 would have known this. They would have got on and said, hey, guys, come on and give us some help. Because that's maritime law. You got a crash, you got an accident, boats got to respond. That doesn't mean that every boat in the area's got to come your way. It's just... That's just a rule. But the P3 never called for Navy. And then the ADAC never called for Navy. Why not? because the Navy wasn't out there. Okay?
There was a lot of confusion. There, okay?
Yes.
We talked off the air about that imposter I was telling you about. I found the article, okay, while we were talking.
Okay.
A guy showed up, posed as a military officer. He got 6 months for that, and then he was arrested again later on for pretending to be a doctor. The guy was practicing medicine. So this guy was able to show up. I think he had a uniform on and convinced NYPD Harbor Aviation to build a heliport. Now, another unusual, suspicious thing that was different, in my opinion, the families were kept and housed in a hotel for quite a bit of time. Did you look into that scenario?
No, again, we were talking earlier. I've never heard of any of that. I actually haven't.
Right, so that makes me. You say that the families did prevail in a lawsuit against Lockheed Martin, I believe it was, or the plane's manufacturer, right? So you're familiar with lawsuits where they got monetary compensation? Okay,
I guess I might have misunderstood your earlier proposal there, but no. When TWA first went down on July 17th, and as soon after, because the families believed the NTSB when they stated that it was a mechanical and not a missile, which many people were saying. They sued TWA and Boeing Aircraft Corporation. Boeing makes the 747 for monetary. Now, all of a sudden, here about 6 months ago, they apparently changed their mind. And we have a lot of estates, a lot of family members now trying to sue again. Okay, and saying, well, we don't believe the NTSB. We think it's a missile. Well, they could only have put this forward because the only principle, Ed, that they can have in this case, they can try to go against Raytheon, they can try to go against all these other manufacturers of this Navy missile system, but unless they have the ship, unless they have the missiles from that ship and the commanding officer, they don't have nothing. That's what I pointed out to the current Department of Defense General Counsel, Catherine Cross. I said, ma'am, they're trying to sue Raytheon for what? Where did the missiles come from? You know, I said, and I gave her the paperwork. I said 105 was closed. There was no exercises going out there. People flying around and all kinds of airplanes flying around out there on boats. Nobody saw a flotilla of Navy ships. They were way, way south. So there's nothing off of Long Island. Okay, and some investigators have said, oh, yeah, that radar shows, but they had never proved it. See, that's the whole thing. You can say till you're blue in the face, oh, this is what it is, but I've got documentation.
No, I got you. No, clearly you've devoted a lot of time to this, man. Yeah. Clearly.
Yeah, but
then where do you think the missile came from?
Again, that's going to be phase 3 here.
Okay.
Now, Thomas Stalcup, in his complaint, he says he feels that he's privy to certain documentation. He says, well, I have all these FOIAs and all this stuff that shows about the Aegis system, about a failure to warn, and so on. Well, I have the same documentation. There are reports to Congress that are done, I don't know, periodically, like every 9 months or 12 months or so. They do reports. And I pulled up the complete, bottle full of reports. And what it does is when the Navy goes out there and operates, now this Aegis system, that can be on land or on ships, okay? And it goes through all the little technical details, like, oh, we had a burp here, this didn't work, the missile didn't fire right, or whatever. And they put in there what the issues were. They've got to report this to Congress. This is for getting funding and all this stuff. They got to come straight forward. Yeah. So I'm reading page after page after page. We were talking about we were out there and we fired off a missile, but it halfway through its flight, it had an issue with the second booster phase or something. They put that in there. So I'm like, where's this failure to warn? The documents I have, the congressional documents on this Aegis system, do nothing but warn. Okay. The plaintiffs in this case, they want to make this Aegis system this terrible, terrible system they need to get rid of because they fire missiles and the missiles just go where they want to go. And I'm like, no, it's just wrong.
Arran Sheets, we're pretty much out of time. We only got about 3 or 4 minutes left. How would you like to sum all this up for us?
Well, I just wanted to sum this up by saying that documents that I have, and again, when people go to my YouTube page and they find it, they just got to click on my what do they call it, my page, or whatever, which shows the stuff I posted. When they start scrolling down, they can scroll down as far as November 17th of last year. You'll see articles that I've posted in there, and I will be posting some more. I'm going to be posting the letters that I wrote to the general counsel, and again, we know it was a missile. We know it wasn't the Navy. We do know that there was a high-speed supersonic aerial vehicle that was transiting the airspace. That's what the FAA radar picked up on. Okay, now.
Wait, Arran, real quick. Could the missile have come from a plane?
This again, buddy. It came from the north, and one witness said she saw it. She said when she saw this thing going across the sky, coming out across the dunes. I don't know how many feet up it was at first until it started accelerating. But she said she called it a missile thingy. She said it looked like a small commuter plane with little stubby wings on it. And when you look up her description, this describes an X-51 Wave Runner. This is a hypersonic test missile that the Air Force and NASA does. Okay, that they drop from planes and then they'll go down and fly through the airspace. Now they were trying to do something that night. Now there were missile platforms out there. Again, for the next, if you bring me back on again, I'd love to come back on again because again, I could spend another whole hour getting the buttoning up things we couldn't button up today here.
Gotcha.
But
in the meantime, what we'll do is, because we are out of time, and in the meantime, people can go to your Facebook page, which is Arran Sheets, AARONSHEETS. And then if you put in .129, you'll get right to his page. But otherwise, if you're scrolling around for him, it's the one with the Navy fighter jet on the. I guess that's an aircraft carrier, right?
Yeah, it's. Did you see the page?
I'm on it right now. It's not that hard to find.
Yeah. Well, I was just saying to show to tell a guest on the radio. Yeah, it's an EA-60 aircraft, and the guy jogging in the picture, that's me on there. I got that, so I just went ahead and posted that. But then when they start scrolling down, they'll start seeing, they can go down as far as November 17th.
Gotcha. And there's a link there, too, to the YouTube page. So, Arran, we got to go, but keep in touch. When you got new information, man, give me a call. But we should probably do a part. Yeah, we should probably do a part 2 anyway, just to follow up on this Wave Runner stuff.
Definitely.
Thank you so much, Arran Sheets.
Thank you, Ed.
Good night.
Okay, bye-bye.